So let's talk about the Eagles. But we're not just going to talk about them as one of the biggest bands of all time. We're going to look at them as a blueprint, a really fascinating case study in how a team can be engineered for just monumental success, and how that very success can tear it apart from the inside out. Okay, let's get into it. Don Henley said this about their song Hotel California. And sure, it perfectly describes their biggest hit. But what's really wild is that this quote, it describes the band's own story even better. Their journey is this epic saga of taking the hippie ideals of the 60s and transforming them into a ruthless corporate empire in the 70s, and then dealing with the burnout that was bound to follow. All right, so first things first. We have to understand that the Eagles didn't just happen. This wasn't some happy accident in a garage somewhere. No, this was a strategic assembly of talent. It was more like a corporate merger than a jam session. I mean, just look at this roster. These were not kids hoping for a big break. Every single one of these founding members was a seasoned pro, a veteran of that super competitive LA music scene. Glenn Frey and Don Henley, they already had record deals. Bernie Leadon and Randy Meisner came from huge bands like the Flying Burrito Brothers and Poco. They were basically a supergroup from day one, handpicked because they were already the best. And this lays out the process perfectly. It was just a calculated series of steps. Step 1, Linda Ronstadt, a massive star herself, gets them all together to be her backing band. Step 2, that vocal chemistry, those harmonies, it was instant and you just couldn't deny it. Step 3, and this is amazing, Ronstadt herself encouraged them to go form their own band. And then she introduced them to the music mogul David Geffen, who immediately signed them to his brand new label. This wasn't a lucky break, this was a product launch. So they've got the success, and with that success came a really critical decision. The band's leaders, Frey and Henley, they realized that to really conquer the world, that laid-back country sound had to change. It was time for a strategic pivot to something much, much bigger, stadium rock. And you can see this pivot so clearly in their choice of producers. They actually fired Glenn Johns, the guy who crafted their early sound, those high-flying harmonies, because Frey and Henley thought he was too soft. They hired Bill Simchick for one reason, to give them a muscular, gritty rock edge. This wasn't just some creative choice. It was a cold, calculated business move to grab a massive rock audience. And a corporate strategy like that, well, it has very real, very human consequences. Guitarist Don Felder was brought in specifically to add that rock bite. This new direction totally alienated founding member Bernie Leadon, who was a country purist. He quit, but not before dramatically pouring a beer over Glenn Frey's head. So to complete this whole transformation, they brought in the legendary rock wildman Joe Walsh, and that cemented their new identity as a stadium rock powerhouse. So that pivot, that big shift, it led them straight to the top of the mountain. Hotel California wasn't just an album, it was a global phenomenon. But achieving that kind of perfection, it came with an immense and ultimately a destructive price. So what is Hotel California really all about? Well, the song itself is a metaphor for the dark side of the American dream. It's about this seductive, beautiful place that slowly becomes a prison of excess, a place you can check out of anytime you like, but you can never leave. It was this haunting commentary on 70s culture, but it was also becoming a mirror for the band's own life. And the numbers, they're just staggering. #1 on the Billboard charts, over 32 million copies sold worldwide, 26 times platinum in the US alone, a Grammy for Record of the Year. It was absolute global domination. But supporting that kind of success meant a grueling, nearly year-long tour. The pressure was just unbearable, and it led to another crack in the foundation. Founding bassist Randy Meisner, he was physically sick, he was exhausted, and one night he refused to sing his signature high harmony on Take It to the Limit. After a furious backstage fight with Glenn Frey, Meisner quit the band. Just like that, another original member was gone. And that brings us to the great paradox of the Eagles' story. Right at the absolute peak of their fame and power, with the whole world at their feet, the entire thing just completely imploded. Just try to imagine the pressure of having to solo up this level of success. That insane weight of expectation was crushing all the creativity and friendship right out of them. They were exhausted, and any real friendship was long gone. And it all just boiled over on this one night, at a political fundraiser of all places. Glenn Frey and Don Felder spent the entire concert threatening each other over their live microphones for the entire audience to hear. This quote from Frey to Felder is the most infamous line from that night, a night that's now known as the Long Night at Wrong Beach. The hatred wasn't backstage anymore, it had become part of the show. And that was it. After the show, Felder smashed his guitar to pieces, and the band members all went their separate ways. The biggest band in the world was over. They wouldn't speak to each other, let alone play music together for another 14 years. But, the story doesn't end there. Because even in their breakup and their reunion, the Eagles kept writing the blueprint for the modern music industry and for what high-stakes team conflict looks like. When they finally did get back together in 1994, they did something that changed everything. The Hell Freezes Over tour was the very first to break the $100 barrier for a standard arena ticket. They pioneered tiered pricing with golden circle seats, creating the high-cost premium concert model that is now the standard for every major band. They literally changed the economics of live music forever. And their commercial power is it's unprecedented. Seriously, look at this chart of the best-selling albums in U.S. history. The Eagles hold the #1 spot with their greatest hits and the #3 spot with Hotel California. To have 2 of the top 3 albums of all time, that's a level of dominance nobody else has even come close to. And this is where that blueprint feels totally timeless. Just look at the recent struggles of the Philadelphia Eagles NFL team. You see the exact same patterns. A late-season collapse from a predictable strategy, that's the band's creative burnout on the long run. Reports of the star quarterback going rogue, that's Henley and Frey changing the band's entire sound. Tension between the coach and the star player, that's Frey and Felder at Wrong Beach. The patterns, they're identical. So it really leaves us with this one big question. The Eagles built this perfect hit-making machine through relentless ambition and absolute control. But that same machine, it ended up consuming its creators. And it really makes you wonder, is that relentless pursuit of perfection always destined to fracture the very teams that achieve it? Is success inherently self-destructive?